the Civilizational Connect, organized by Ministry of Culture, Government of India, the Department of Odia Language, Literature and Culture, Government of Odisha, Utkal University, Bani Bihar, and Institute of Media Studies. Indeed, it is rightly mentioned, Barshanang Bharata Sreshta, Deshanang Utkala Srutaha, Utkalasya Shamodesha, Desanasti Mahitade. Of all the countries in the world, India is the best, and of all the states, Odisha, Kalinga is. And this apothegm finds a true paradigm when we find the connection, the link between Kalinga and Southeast Asian countries. And as everybody knows, Kalinga has a great role to play in shaping, in giving an identity to Southeast Asia through the maritime culture and through the cultural exchange. And this international conference will add some new feathers to the glory concerning the relation between Kalinga and Southeast Asia. And in the inaugural session, we are very much delighted to have in our midst esteemed Ambassador Sri Lalit Man Singh Ji, former Foreign Secretary, Ambassador to USA, and High Commissioner to the United Kingdom, and founding chairman of Kalinga International Foundation, who is the chief guest of the occasion. With a big round of applause, we welcome esteemed Sri Lalit Man Singh Ji. We are very much delighted to have in our midst Honorable Principal Secretary, Odia Language, Literature and Culture, Government of Odisha, esteemed Sri Sanjeev Kumar Misra Ji. His benign presence has added luster to this program. Once again, with a big round of applause, we welcome Sri Sanjeev Kumar Misra Ji. And we are very much elated to have in our midst esteemed Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, Professor Savita Acharya, who has been kind enough to preside over the session. And we are also very much delighted to have Professor Patita Pavan Misra in our midst, former Professor, Northern University of Malaysia, and Chairman, One Asia Foundation. And I take the privilege to request esteemed Professor Upendra Padhi, Chairman of the 3rd ICICH and Director of Institute of Media Studies, Utkal University, who is instrumental in conducting all these international conferences for 3 consecutive times. Now we request all of you to kindly stand in giving respect to the national anthem.
जन गण मन अधिनायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता पंजाब सिंध गुजरात मराठा द्राविड उत्कल बंगा विंध्य हिमाचल यमुना गंगा उच्चल जलधि तरंगा तव शुभ नामे जागे तव शुभ आशीष मांगे गाहे तव जय गाथा जन गण मंगलदायक जय हे भारत भाग्य विधाता जय हे जय हे जय हे जय 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 हे.
Thank you, and we are very much delighted to have the gracious presence of eminent delegates from different parts of the globe, and also scholars, academicians, and esteemed members from different walks of life. With your gracious presence, may I now request all the dignitaries on the dais present over to kindly light the ceremonial lamp to mark the commencement of this program. in an auspicious note, we just light the ceremonial lamp to mark the beginning of this international conference and seeking benedictions of Almighty. We are extremely thankful to all the dignitaries for lighting the lamp. Now I take the privilege to request Professor Upendra Padhi, Chairman of ICICH and Director of Institute of Media Studies, to kindly welcome and felicitate all the dignitaries in the dais by presenting flower bouquet and shawl as a token of love and appreciation to their gracious presence. We believe in the concept of Atithi Devo Bhava, and we pay respect, pay reverence to the dignitaries, those who have come long way from different parts to make this event successful. As a token of love and appreciation, we welcome on behalf of this event organized by Ministry of Culture, Government of India, the Department of Odia Language, Literature and Culture, Utkal University and Institute of Mass Studies. With the eminent dignitaries, we will just witness deliberations in this inaugural session, to be followed by deliberations by different scholars and academicians, those who have come from different parts. We are extremely thankful to Professor Upendra Padhi and request him to kindly accept our reverence by receiving this bouquet and shawl. So with a big round of applause, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Professor Upendra Padhi for conceiving of such international conference and making it a reality. As the adage goes, successful men do not do different things, they do things differently, and there lies the success. And here is a man, Professor Upendra Padhi, who always thinks of doing something novel, doing something new, and particularly under his stewardship, Institute of Media Studies has been able to conduct different events, workshops, seminars, symposiums concerning education, concerning media studies and concerning art, literature, and particularly this international conference on Kalinga and Southeast Asia is the outcome of his brainchild. We are extremely grateful to him for successfully conducting different events. And in this third chapter of international conference, also we are having wonderful and encouraging presence, and we attribute the credit to Professor Upendra Padhi. Now I request Professor Upendra Padhi, Chairman of the 3rd ICICH 2025 and Director, Institute of Media Studies, to kindly present a welcome address.
Respected President of this inaugural function, Professor Sabita Acharya, former Vice Chancellor Utkal University, respected Chief Guest of this inaugural function, Honorable former Foreign Secretary, Ambassador Lalit Mansingh ji, Honorable Guest of Honor, Shri Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, Principal Secretary, Language, Literature, Culture and SC/ST Development Department, Government of Odisha, and theme presenter of this inaugural ceremony of the 3rd ICICH International Conference on Kalinga Southeast Asia, Professor Patita Pawan Mishra, Chairman, One Asia Foundation. I feel honored and privileged to welcome the scholars from Indonesia, Bali, Malaysia, Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Germany and Nepal to this 3rd ICICH to this inaugural function. I welcome you all to the land of Lord Jagannath with the philosophy of Athithi Deva Bhava. I feel honored and privileged to welcome academicians, scholars from different universities, institutions, policymakers and researchers, media friends and ladies and gentlemen to this inaugural session. I also welcome Shri Deva Prasad Das, Special Secretary, Odia Language, Literature and Culture Department, Government of Odisha, who strongly supported this 3rd International Conference on Kalinga and Southeast Asia, monitor properly for the success happening of this event. We welcome you, sir, to this inaugural function. I also welcome Professor Prabhat Kumar Mahapatra, Director, Puri Sadasiv Campus, Sanskrit University, because the Central Sanskrit University, New Delhi, is our knowledge partner. I also welcome scholars from the Manipur Central University. The Manipur Central University Department of Southeast Asian Studies is the knowledge partner of this department. I also welcome Professor Ujjwala Khuteji, and their organization is also the knowledge partner of this organization. Friends, regarding the introduction of our guest and the chief guest of this program is Lalit Mansingh. He is the son of the soil, and Lalit Mansingh is a very popular name and he needs no introduction. Former Ambassador, Mansingh has served as Indian Foreign Secretary, Ambassador to United States and High Commissioner to the United Kingdom. He has also been Ambassador to United Arab Emirates, and he served during his tenure in various capacities. And Mansingh is the founder or chairman of Kalinga International Foundation, a think tank with focus on India's relations with South Asian neighbors and with the wider Indo-Pacific regions. Shri Mansingh has worked rigorously regarding the Kalinga, its role and its contribution, particularly in the Southeast Asian countries. Earlier he had organized similar international conference here in Bhubaneswar, inviting scholars across the globe to Bhubaneswar. We are very happy and we are very thankful to you, sir. We welcome you to this inaugural session. We have with us today the Professor Sabita Acharya. Yesterday only she superannuated from the Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, Professor Sabita Acharya, very popular academicians across the country, very nationally acclaimed professional academician. And Professor Savita Acharya is a known anthropologist and expert in social and cultural anthropology who holds the Commonwealth Postdoctoral Fellowship Award. During her tenure, particularly I can tell for during her tenure as the Vice Chancellor of the Utkal University, Madam supported, guided us to organize the international conference, particularly this third edition of this ICICH on the theme Kalinga and Southeast Asia. Her support, cooperation, guidance help us to organize this third international conference here in Bhubaneswar, inviting scholars across the globe. Madam, we are very thankful and grateful to you for your kind support and cooperation to make this event happen in the Bhubaneswar. We welcome you to this inaugural function. We are very happy and privileged to welcome Sri Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, the Principal Secretary, Odia Language, Literature and Culture Department, Government of Odisha. Sri Mishra is a 97 batch IS officer. Sri Mishra currently is the Secretary of L&C Department along with ST and SC Development, Minority and Backward Classes Welfare Department. Sri Mishra was given additional charge of Principal Secretary to the Social Security and Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, and he previously served as the Secretary cum Controller of Examination for the National Recruitment Agency. During his tenure, he had made a lot of reformative works in the National Recruitment Agency. Before that, he was the officer on special duty for the Industries Department and the Resident Commissioner of Odisha, New Delhi. Sri Mishra is an honest and hardworking and efficient bureaucrat. Sir, we welcome you to this inaugural function. I welcome Professor Patita Pawan Mishra, who is a mentor of this international conference, very popular historian, Professor Patita Pawan Mishra. Currently, he is the chairman One Asia Foundation here in Bhubaneswar. Sir, we welcome you to the inaugural session. Friends, as you all know, Kalinga's maritime activities and cultural relations with outside world highlight its role as a pioneer of global connectivity during ancient and medieval periods through trades, cultural ties, arts and the diplomacy. Kalinga bridged the civilizations and left indelible mark on the cultural landscape of Southeast Asia and beyond. The third international conference on Indian cultural heritage with the theme Kalinga Southeast Asia Civilizational Linkage will highlight the ancient trade routes and trade practices and deep multilateral ties between Kalinga and many Southeast Asian countries. And we have 4 plenary sessions and 1 panel discussion. As for we have circulated the themes and sub-themes, the invited scholars and the researchers, they will deliberate these deep-rooted things with the Kalinga and the Southeast Asia. Friends, when we celebrate this Kartika Purnima, when we have this Boitabandhan, we used to recall the past glory of our Sadhavas, what they had did during that time with Kalinga, with the trade, with the Southeast Asian countries. And the whole purpose of this international conference inviting scholars, our government is putting lot of effort to put Bali Jatra in World Intangible Heritage Fair site, and they are in the proper process, government is in proper process, and I request all the scholars and the outcome and the suggestions of this, recommendations of this conference definitely will help our government to take forward this movement with the UNESCO and the Government of India, the Sangeet Natak Academy, to have an meaningful things to declare Bali Jatra as the intangible World Heritage Affairs. And I also request our scholars during this 2 days deliberation, they will suggest this thing, how we can go ahead. And during our discussion, our honorable guest of honor, our principal secretary, he will focus how, to what extent our state government is planning to carry forward these things. And we are very thankful to our present government who are very keen regarding this Udiya Asmita. And as part of this Udiya Asmita, the entire system is working to have more dialogues and deliberations and to more work on this preserving the Udiya Asmita. And the present government, they have come out with certain resolutions after the findings and the suggestions of this conference, how that thing will be properly executed. Our principal secretary will highlight that part, the decisions of the state government. With these words, again I welcome you all to this 3rd International Conference on Calling and Southeast Asia. I hope the scholars, those are from outside the country, and scholars, those are outside from our state, they all will enjoy their stay here in Bhubaneswar, the temple city of Bhubaneswar. The Odisha is the land of Lord Jagannath. I hope you all will enjoy and will leave Odisha with a lot of sweet memories when we will have our 4th edition. At least I will hope you all will share your good memories of this conference in our future program. Thank you all.
We are thankful to Professor Upendra Padhi, Chairman of the 3rd ICICS 2025 and Director of Institute of Media Studies, Bhubaneswar, for according a warm welcome to all of you. Now I take the privilege to request Professor Patita Pavan Misra. As everybody knows, Professor Patita Pavan Misra, former Professor, Northern University of Malaysia and Chairman, One Asia Foundation. He is a retired Professor of History, as everybody knows, and particularly his specialization World History, with a particular focus on South Asian and Southeast Asian history. As it is known to everyone, Professor Misra has an illustrious teaching career spanning nearly 40 years, during which he has guided numerous scholars of PhD and DLit scholars both in India and abroad, and a prolific contributor to encyclopedias. He has written approximately 900 articles for over 150 encyclopedia published by renowned publishers of the States and United Kingdom. Particularly, Professor Patita Pavan Misra is the mentor of this international conference, and we are having a very good experience with him, and he will be presenting the conference theme. May I request Professor Patita Pavan Misra to kindly present the conference theme.
Jai Jagannath, and good morning to all of you. Esteemed His Excellency Ambassador Lalit Mansingh, Mr. Misra IS, Madam Vice Chancellor Savita Acharya, then my good friend Dr. Padhi, and many of my friends in the audience, like Dr. Raut and Dr. Basa, so many friends are there. Then my very close friends from Indonesia, Dr. Niaz, Dr. Hara, then from Malaysia, Dr. Siva, then we have a friend from Sri Lanka, and my esteemed teacher, Nivedita Mahanti, is there, who taught me history long, long ago in GM College. Actually, this Gangadhar Meher College at the time had a reputation because the father of our esteemed chief guest, Man Singh's father was the first principal there. Then the members of the staff of the media studies, students, all the gatherings, ladies and gentlemen. I stand before you with proud privilege and delight to share some of my thoughts over this region known as Southeast Asia and how our relations, India's relation and Kalinga or Odisha's relation with the region forms an important part of the global history. When I started studying Southeast Asia long ago, maybe 4-5 decades ago, I was surprised to find the paucity of materials, and one thought that haunted my mind was that why our state, Kalinga, covering a part of Odisha and Andhra Pradesh, has been neglected by many historians, scholars, not only by the Western scholars, but also from our own country. To give you an example, when I was reading relations between Burma or Myanmar and India, one particular scholar didn't mention a line about Kalinga. So Kalinga has been sidetracked. We are lagging behind in many aspects in historical scholarship between the two regions. Kalinga and Southeast Asia also was suffering the same fate. But to our good luck, for last 3-4 decades, many scholars, they have taken up this theme, Kalinga and Southeast Asia, and they've done very scholarly work on it. Moreover, Odisha as a part of Indian nation consists of cultures east, west, south and north. Odisha due place must be recognized and must not be recognized by words only, but by writing, by holding seminars, all those things. That's why in the last 3-4 years I met Professor Padi, whom I found a very good, enthusiast, a scholar to hold seminars. Actually, this is the third seminar in the same theme. And the main focus of this conference would be to bring into light certain aspects of relations between Kalinga and Southeast Asia, and delegates not only from Odisha but also from South Asia, from Southeast Asia, they are here and they will present their findings. Our scholars, our Odia scholars who have done enough work, there is no time to name them, they are also present here, and we will focus on 4 or 5 main themes. One thought is that Odisha has been neglected in scholarship, no doubt about it, and we will project it factually, scientifically, the true nature of relationship between Odisha and Southeast Asia. We won't be jingoist. We won't say that there were colonies started by Odisas. We won't say that some similarity of names established relations between Kalinga and Southeast Asia. We'll go very deep into it in this seminar to collect evidences, to call from different places what is the real relation, how far scientific it is. And for that, we'll take the help of artificial intelligence, we'll take the help of the archaeologists, we'll take the help of scientists, and we'll request the government, which has been very kind enough recently, to encourage this seminar by promising so many things, like holding in each year conference like this, so that the Odia Asmita will be projected in a scientific way. I am not one of the historians who will say everything came from India or from Odisha. We will strive hard to focus it in a scientific spirit, calling documents, inscriptions, archaeological excavations, all those things. And for that, One thing we must know is that, which has been neglected, language of the region, Southeast Asian region. There is nobody to learn about Vietnamese, Indonesians or Bahasa Malayu. Unless we know the language, how can we read the scripts or the inscriptions? Unless we take the help of scientific technological development, how to find the ship logs, how to find how many ships were going, and how to have, in a very scientific method, the carbon dating method, to know about the periods. Another thing we will highlight is that, which has been general notion, after 15th and 16th century there was, decline in Odishan trade and commerce. Actually, if we go deep into it, after 15th or 16th century or coming of the Afghans, Mughals, there might have been decline in cultural atmosphere or cultural rapprochement between Odisha and Southeast Asia. But the trade continued. And this conference will highlight how in late medieval and pre-colonial, pre-British period, the trade remained same from ports like Harishpur, Baleshwar, etc. After coming of the British in the beginning of 19th century, trade declined because colonial masters, they took over the charge. But after independence, again there was revival of relations because Subhash Bose, INA Army, many recruits were from Odisha. Then in 1945, 46, 47, when the Indonesians were fighting against the Dutch, there was the pilot from Odisha, Biju Patnaik, who went to Indonesia, escaped, made it in his plane to bring Hatta, the vice president, and Sultan Zahari, prime minister, to bring in his self-driven plane. And for that, he was awarded the title of Bhumiputra, or son of the soil. In 1995, he was also awarded the title, the star, Dasa Uttama, something like that, in 1995, when Indonesia celebrated 50 years of its independence. So all these things will be brought into light in this conference, which has been neglected earlier. Then, in 1990s, there was a flicker of hope when India government started the Look East policy. But only after 2014 or last 11 years, the policy of Act East marched with a vigor and enthusiasm. And we find many conferences, many grants, and to our good luck, for last 1 or 1.5 years, we find the present government also promising to help to develop this discipline of Kalinga and Southeast Asia relations very much, and we are grateful to them. And I hope this conference, its outcome will be known after 2 days, and after 2 days we'll be able to tell you what we have achieved and what more we'll achieve. So that as India has been neglected, everything went to China in ancient times, but William Dalby's book, The India Gate, again tried to project India in its proper perspective, so that we will see that Kalinga, or our state Odisha, will get its due course, due recognition in a scientific way, but not in a very patriotic fervor or jingoistic way. And that is the aim of any social scientist, to put anything in a proper perspective, without any bias. With this, I thank you all. Thank you very much.
We are extremely thankful to Professor Patita Pawan Mishra, former professor, Northern University of Malaysia and chairman, One Asia Foundation, for presenting the conference theme to the appreciation of all concerned. Indeed, the presence of former Ambassador Lalit Mansingh ji has added luster to this international conference. And before giving a formal introduction about this great man, I am reminded of one of the famous lines of his father, who happens to be a renowned poet, who has once said, relating to Kalinga and Southeast Asia, Amo Odisar Shadhava Boita, Bahuthile Jabha Sumatra Parjanta, Daria Bukure Boita Vasai, Apara Sampada Anuthile Bohi, Boita Bandau Thile Kulabadhu, Aka Ma Boi Namo Rahila, Ame Sehi Odisar Pila, Jeun Odisar Desa Videsare, Daria Separe Bepara Thila. This stanza in Odia language just mentions how Kalinga had a great role to play in shaping the Southeast Asian countries, and particularly how we are linked to Southeast Asian countries through the maritime culture. And coincidentally, his Urdi son, Lalit Mansingh ji, is the chief guest of this inaugural event of the international conference. As everybody knows, he is the first Odia ambassador to United States of America, and he was also the foreign secretary to and commissioner to United Kingdom. He has also been ambassador to United Arab Emirates and high commissioner to Nigeria, with concurrent accreditation to Benin, Chad and the Cameroons. And as a great man with humility, he has always encouraged all the people from Odisha, and particularly I am reminded of one of the famous lines, when expression fails through language, we search for an exact emotional equivalence in the realms of objective correlative. But we have no such objective correlative to give adequacy to our feelings, since we have been overwhelmed with emotion, to introduce Ambassador Lalit Mansingh ji. I am just reminded about one of the famous lines of William Shakespeare's Macbeth, William Shakespeare's Hamlet. Hamlet, introducing his father to Horatio, tells, he was a man, take him for all in all. I shall not look upon his like again. With Hamlet, rather I should speak. Ambassador Lalit Mansingh, take him for all in all. We may not look upon his like again. We are very much delighted to have him in our midst. And may I now request Sri Lalit Mansingh ji to kindly present the to kindly deliberate on the theme Kalinga and Southeast Asia. And with a big round of applause, we once again welcome Lalit Mansingh ji, the chief guest of this occasion. I take the privilege to request all the dignitaries in the dais to kindly release the commemorative monograph and 3 books. The monograph, as everybody knows, is the Kalinga Southeast Asian Linkages, written by Professor Upendra Padhi, the Director of Institute of Media Studies. May I now request all the dignitaries to kindly release the books. So the Kalinga Southeast Asian Linkages by Professor Upendra Padhi is being released, which is the monograph of this international conference. And now I request the dignitaries and the dais to release Kalinga and Southeast Asia, a saga of sad civilization, and it is authored by Patita Pavan Misra. Esteemed Patita Pavan Misra is the author of this book, Kalinga and Southeast Asia, a saga of shared civilizations. Now, Desantare Kalinga, Dakhina Purba Asiare Odia Sanskruti. It is originally written by Patita Pavan Misra and it is translated by Kanhu Charan Padhi. This is a publication of Odisha Sahitya Academy under the Department of Odia Language, Literature and Culture, Desantarare Kalinga. And it is originally written by Patita Pavan Misra, and it is translated by Kanhu Charan Padhi, Desantarare Kalinga. Indeed, we are grateful to all the dignitaries and the dais for releasing these books. As we are very much grateful to Professor Savita Acharya, who happens to be, who was, and yesterday was the retiring day of Professor Savita Acharya, and he had served Utkal University as the Vice Chancellor, as the first Lady Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, and as one of the renowned anthropologists of the country. He has given a new dimension to the study and research of anthropology, and she holds the Commonwealth Postdoctoral Fellowship Award, granting her the experience of working at the prestigious University of Oxford, United Kingdom in 2022. And she has also served as the chairperson of PG Council and director of College Development Council in Utkal University. And to her credit, she has also guided innumerable scholars under anthropology study in Utkal University, and she has written so many books, and her books have been read widely by the scholars and by the students. As a prolific writer, she has also penned over 60 research articles and edited 3 books, maintaining academics at the peak of her priorities. Her book, Pilgrimage of Indian Civilization, is a highly acclaimed book by researchers and students alike. And on different occasions, she has also shared the dais, deliberating on different issues relating to history and anthropology. And she has been kind enough to preside over this international conference. May I now request Madam to kindly address the congregation.
Good morning. Samastangu namaskar. Esteemed members on the dais, the chief guest of the inaugural ceremony, Ambassador Lalit Mansingh, the former Foreign Secretary Ambassador to USA and High Commissioner to UK, and founding chairman of Kalinga International Foundation. Esteemed guest of honor, Sri Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, IAS, Honorable Principal Secretary, OLL and C Department, Government of Odisha. Esteemed Professor Patita Pavan Misra, former Professor, Northern University of Malaysia and Chairman, One Asia Foundation. And Professor Upendra Padhi, the chairman of this 3rd ICI-CH 2025 and director IMS Utkal University. And in my front, all distinguished guests, invitees, participants, speakers who have come from within Odisha, outside Odisha, within India and outside India. A hearty welcome to all of you from my own behalf. And this is my privilege to stand before you as the president of this inaugural ceremony, although I relinquished the post of Vice Chancellor Utkal University yesterday evening. Thank you, Upendra Babu. When I was teaching anthropology, I was teaching on Southeast Asian studies. It was one of the special papers of the postgraduate courses in anthropology, Utkal University. I taught and I was teaching to our students only from the secondary sources. The students, they couldn't get a chance to visit the Southeast Asian countries to study. But all of you know that there is a trading relationship between India and Southeast Asian countries. And there are also a religious link. Hindu religion is there in Southeast Asian countries. And as Professor Upendra said, that we had the trading relationship. We know the story of Sadhavapua, we know the story of Akamagua, and we know the story of that Kartika Purnami, it is the Odia culture. So this maritime tradition of Odisha, which is in the eastern coast of India, is one of the most fascinating and historically significant aspects of cultural heritage. And Odisha's long coastline, spanning approximately 574.7 kilometers, along with Bay of Bengal, has been a crucial center for trade, for cultural exchange and exploration, no doubt in it. So this tradition, which dates back over 2 millennia, reflects a rich legacy of seafaring, commerce, and also cultural diffusion. So there is a link between North and South India. Kalinga, we know the Odisha, had long experience of commercial, cultural, and military expansion. So with a long maritime tradition, people of this region has gone to Southeast Asia and left an imprint in its society and culture, including religion. So its cultural influence played a dominant role until the end of 15th century. It became prosperous in the past through maritime activities and making sea voyages to distant lands. The merchants established the commercial relations. So consequently, there was fusion of Odishan culture in these regions. Archaeological findings, inscriptions, architectural designs, religious beliefs, customs, and place underline the role played by the Odishan people to Southeast Asian history. So on the indigenous cultural substructure, it was raised a superstructure, the element of which were contributed by various zones of India, including Odisha. So maritime history of Kalinga, if we discuss, it offers a profound legacy of heritage and also connectivity that it is particularly instructive for Southeast Asia. Starting from ancient time, people of Kalinga established extensive maritime network, forging the links with regions across Southeast Asia, including present-day Indonesia, Malaysia, Myanmar, Thailand, Cambodia, Vietnam. So this rich history of cultural, economic, and also technological exchanges provide critical lessons for strengthening the contemporary regional ties and fostering sustainable development in Southeast Asia. And the strategic location of Kalinga along with the eastern coastline of India and its access to the Bay of Bengal, all enabled it to emerge as a maritime power. And as early as from 3rd century BCE, Kalinga's sailors navigated the monsoon winds to establish trade routes and cultural connections. And these interactions really facilitated the exchange of goods, ideas, art, religious philosophies, particularly Hinduism and Buddhism, which profoundly influenced the Southeast Asia's cultural and spiritual landscape. So during these 2 days deliberations, there will be definitely discussions on, experts are sitting in front of me. The maritime routes which was established by Kalinga were not merely the center of commerce, but also for the culture of exchanges and the spread of Indian culture, epics such as Ramayana, Mahabharata, the dissemination of Sanskrit and the influence of Indian temple architecture in Southeast Asia, all are having impact on these interactions, the kingdoms, and also the kingdoms in Sumatra, in Cambodia, all, and Java, Sumatra, all are influenced by the cultural exchanges. So we can see one of the vital lessons from Kalingan maritime heritage is the emphasis on shared histories and cultural integration. The people of Kalinga did not impose their culture, rather enriched the local traditions through interactions and mutual respect. And this approach fostered a syncretic blend of traditions which created a harmonious society that is Southeast Asia today, which can draw from the lessons by emphasizing the shared cultural heritage among the nations of the region. We know there are very similarities of the observation of the festivals, rituals, similarities which are very much similar with Indian traditions, which can reflect the deep-rooted connections through maritime network. So now it's time to do research on for the promotion of the shared histories through cultural festivals, education, tourism, which can enhance the regional identity and unity. So the sustainability of Kalinga's maritime heritage offers valuable lessons for managing contemporary environmental challenges. And people, they developed the harmonious relationship with nature as evidenced by their deep understanding of the monsoon cycle and their reliance on renewable resources for shipbuilding. And these resources, through these resources, the Southeast Asia can face the significant environmental challenges today. So by drawing inspirations from these sustainable practices of Kalinga, the region can develop strategies to balance the economic growth and environmental conservation. So there are many initiatives taken by the government to promote the sustainable fisheries, to adopt renewable energy sources for maritime industry, and to implement the regulations on maritime pollution, which can ensure the long-term viability of Southeast Asia's maritime economy. So maritime heritage of Odisha, which is the main topic of this third international conference, that is on Kalinga and Southeast Asia, the civilization and connect, we can get many data. And Maritime heritage of Odisha offers a timeless lesson in connectivity, including the cultural exchange and sustainability. So for Southeast Asia, this legacy serves as a platform for fostering regional integration, addressing environmental challenges, enhancing global influence. So by drawing from the rich history of Odisha, Maritime Network Southeast Asia can build a future rooted in the shared heritage, mutual respect, and also collective progress. And the experience and lessons from the past are not merely historical artifacts, but it can be used as a vibrant blueprint for navigating the complexities of the modern world. So during these 2 days deliberations, under 4 sessions, many papers and many plenary sessions are being organized. So I hope we'll get definitely a valuable output at the end of tomorrow. And I wish all the best for a successful deliberation, discussion, and outcome of this 3rd international conference. And I wish all the best. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me. Jai Jagannath.
We would be short of words to express our heartfelt gratitude to Madam Professor Savita Acharya, the President of this inaugural session. As everybody knows, esteemed Sri Sanjeev Kumar Misra, the Principal Secretary of Odia Language, Literature and Culture, is a very renowned administrator of the country. And Sri Misra is the Principal Secretary to Government in the Department of ST and SC Development, Minorities and Backward Classes Welfare Department, and also to the Social Security and Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities, and particularly under his stewardship, the Department of Odia Language, Literature and Culture has witnessed a very wonderful emergence, and particularly he has given a new dimension to the department with his experience and with his wonderful way of functioning. And particularly as the Resident Commissioner of Odisha in New Delhi, Sri Misra has left a mark, and among the bureaucrats he stands great, and with his simplicity and winsome smile he always steals the heart and leaves a mark. May I now request esteemed Sri Sanjeev Kumar Misra ji, Principal Secretary, to kindly address the congregation.
Good morning, all of you. His Excellency Ambassador Retired Lalit Mansingh ji, Chief Guest for today's inaugural function. Our Honorable Vice Chancellor Retired Madam Savita Acharya ji, Professor Patita Pavan Mishra, Chairman One Asia Foundation, Professor Padi, the architect organizer behind this function, distinguished guests of the dais, delegates from 6 countries. We have Nepal, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, Malaysia, Vietnam, also Bali includes Indonesia, members of media, ladies and gentlemen. It gives immense pleasure to be here as a guest and also the organizer behind the scenes for this 3rd edition of Kalinga and Southeast Asia, the Civilization Connect. Friends, as we are here, as Professor Pavan Mishra said, that we are here not to eulogize ourselves, but to sift through the facts and get the evidence where the Kalinga was and how did Kalinga culture influence, and document those. We are in the midst of a big revolution in the state of Odisha, and what I have seen, I would like to make 3-4 comments so that, the people who are from Odisha, I guess there are about 600 delegates, out of which 282 are here from outside Odisha, and others are renowned people, professors, academicians, researchers, scholars from different universities and academic institutions. So the primary focus is academic content here, academic discussions and gathering evidence. And this present government has come, and one of their big focus is Odia Asmita. And to paraphrase in our bureaucratic language, what we should feel proud of, that unless a society, its own people feel proud of their own land, own culture, I think that history has shown that that land somehow is left behind. Wherever you go, when the Europeans went to United States, they built United States in a way that, but they also keep their own culture. If you go to North America, even Canada has the French and the English traditions. They maintain it. We are also seeing that when people from India, whether they are from Tamil Nadu, Andhra, Odisha, they go there, they also have their own cultural institutions, they also keep there. So the culture somehow is inherent to the human mind and to the area, and we must do whatever our best as the government to preserve, protect, and take pride in our culture. It's not to propagate a religion. It's not that. It's to be proud of your own culture. And in the government side, we are doing our best. And all of you, I know, and even personally me, I am waiting to hear Your Excellency Ambassador Lalit Mansingh sir. So I would be very brief. I had prepared a very long speech. I will not go through that. All I have to say is that the proceedings of this conference would really be an instrument of policy making for us. We have already done, renowned firm McKinsey is preparing a document. We have already, we are in the final stages of giving the policy action. I'm sure that today's discussion and the books release, they will be also a part of the evidence building. As you know, from the government side, we have had huge increase in budget provisions, and we are going to, it's possible, we have planned to do this annual conference. We also want to hold this conference abroad, provided we get that adequate support and the clearance from the Ministry of External Affairs. We have already tied up with the Indian Council of Cultural Relations, and in various universities we are also making for the Odia language chairs. With BHU we have recently signed MOU. With JNU we have already done it, and we are continuing that. So the spectrum of language, literature and the whole culture, we are going to do it, and all of us have to work together. In this world, again, whatever you work, your presence should not only be in the physical world, but also in the virtual world. That is the internet. So on the internet also, we are going to focus how the Odia words can be there. Today you go and try to translate a Odia, particular paragraph and try to translate into the language, then you find it, slightly more difficult because the number of words have not been entered in the Unicode format into this. So for that also, we are setting up a Odia Translation Academy. We are going to focus on that. So various other works we are going to do in the course of discussion in the morning. Ambassador Mansingh was just suggesting that why don't you put some research, input into the part of the policy. Sir, I can assure you that we'll take that factor very seriously, and we'll include that so that our researchers can go abroad and do research about Odisha's traditions there, and so also the inflow from the outside. A lot of things to discuss, but I will be meeting you in the course of discussion in the academic forum, and I wish this very high success, and building on this success, if we are able to make a good policy, then all of us would be collaborators. into this, Kalinga and Southeast Asian tradition. Both Kalinga and Southeast Asia, if you see, we are actually, believe in culture, and we are like a soft, power countries. You see any Southeast Asian country, how they have maintained their cultural aspects. Indonesia, even being a Muslim predominant nation, how they have preserved the drama traditions and all, like Ramayana, Mahabharata, all these things. So principally I find that this region has a different prospect. Odisha, we had Buddhist, Jainism, we had all the origin, and this land is, after all, our God is named Jagannath, the God of the universe. So our tagline is also, for those who have come from outside, the India's best kept secrets. Our tourism tagline is India's best kept secrets. I truly believe in that. How can people who stayed here name their God as the Lord of the universe? That thought itself, will make you think deeply. We could have named it Lord Vishnu, Lord Shiva, some name, but it is Jagannath. So then whenever my friends, to end it in a soft humor, whenever my friends talk about, ये क्या है उड़ीसा, मुझे कुछ समझ में नहीं आता, इतना अच्छे लोग हैं, इतना ये क्या क्या है. So I used to tell, भाई उड़ीसा का समझ नहीं पाओगे. That is why we have said India's best kept secret. And to understand our Lord, I used to joke with them, first understand universe. Whenever जगत को समझ नहीं पाओगे तो जगत के नाथ को क्या समझ पाओगे. जगत को समझने टाइम लग जाता है हमें. So this is on a lighter note I am sharing with you. And thank you very much. Any problems, you can rely on us. Our department officers will be there. Any problems, I hope your stay is comfortable. And do visit people, places. We have tremendous, cultural, textile, handicrafts, all these things. You will have a pleasure, especially those from outside. Thank you very much. And we eagerly look forward to hear our chief guests. Thank you, sir.
Words will be short enough to express thanks and gratitude to esteemed Sri Sanjeev Kumar Mishra, the Principal Secretary to the Department of Odia Language, Literature and Culture. Although this international conference is designed by Professor Upendra Padhi, and we are grateful to Sri Sanjeev Kumar Mishra for making this dream come to a reality, and because of his particular interest in this affair, in this issue, this conference is going to be a grand success. Thank you, sir. Thanks for your benign presence and support. Now, the time is that we are awaiting for. Dr. Lalit Mansingh, the renowned diplomat of the world, is born in Odisha and is the pride of India. And before joining Indian Foreign Services and being the topper of his batch, he had also served as the professor of political science and had taught to the students of post-graduation department of political science in Utkal University. And still, some of his students, some of his scholars, they hold him dear to their hearts. And as everybody knows, one thing is very special to Dr. Lalit Mansingh ji. He has been instrumental in establishing a very good relationship with India, between India and other countries. And particularly, wherever he goes, he is proud of introducing him as an Odia, and he hails from the land of Lord Jagannath. And that is the speciality of Dr. Lalit Mansingh ji. We are extremely grateful to you, sir. And in reciprocation, we also hold you dear to our hearts. May I now request you, as the esteemed chief guest of the occasion, please address the congregation and just delight one and all. Now, Dr. Lalit Mansingh ji.
Can you hear me? Oh, God. Okay. I was saying thank you for that very generous introduction. he forgot to add one of my titles. I was officially an ambassador of India, but unofficially, I was the ambassador of Odisha. As the first Odia to join the Foreign Service, I thought it was my privilege and my duty to make people know more about Odisha. And therefore, I am very proud to be here in a conference organized by my alma mater, the Utkal University, where I also had the privilege of teaching, to address an issue which has been very close to my heart, Kalinga and Southeast Asia. So, first of all, let me thank the Utkal University and thank you, Madam Vice Chancellor. This is your parting gift that a day after your retirement, we are privileged to see you as the chairman of this very important conference. Thank you, Mr. Sanjeev Mishra. I enjoyed your talk. I know that you didn't read out your speech. You spoke straight from the heart. I want to remind you that you report to your political masters, but your constituency is here. The scholars, the historians, the professors, the students, they are your constituency, and I'm glad you have broad shoulders because you have many responsibilities. One of them is to promote the study of history and particularly the history of Kalinga and Southeast Asia. And as I'm going to mention in my address, much of what we know about Kalinga and Southeast Asia, much of it, before the historians actually gave us a picture, consisted of myths and mysteries and hearsay. And there is a big job we have to make Kalinga known as it was to Southeast Asia, and to hear the voices of Southeast Asia, to listen to what Kalinga represented in our common history. This conference is significant because after many centuries of ups and downs, India and Southeast Asia have started a dialogue to review their age-old ties as well as to discuss their common destiny for the future. The importance of Southeast Asia was dormant in India's foreign policy until Prime Minister Narasimha Rao's Look East policy in 1992. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has elevated that policy to Act East, from Look East to Act East. And he has made the region a major focus of our foreign policy. Since then, India has developed a strategic partnership with ASEAN collectively and bilaterally with the most important countries in the region. This conference has many objectives, but I can think of two which stand out as priorities. One is to initiate and sustain a dialogue between Odisha and its long-lost partners from a distant past. I am delighted to see that so many delegates and scholars from the region are present here to join us in this dialogue. So, if you are from Sri Lanka, may I wish you Ayobhawan. If you are from Thailand, Swadikai, and if you are from Indonesia, Selamat Datang, and welcome, Madam, to the land of the Orang Keling. A second and more challenging objective is for Odisha to go beyond just nostalgia for the past and take bold steps to seek opportunities in the Indo-Pacific today. This conference should be considered a resounding success if the leadership of the state can be persuaded to formulate an Act East policy for Odisha within the framework of the policies of the Government of India. And so, Mr. Sanjeev Mishra, I hope that Odisha will soon have an Act of East policy, just as the Government of India has an Act East policy. In the course of my address, I propose to highlight some of the interesting features of the history of Odisha's past encounters with Southeast Asia, and to proceed thereafter to outline the contemporary relevance of that history for the state today. It is my conviction that Kalinga, as a powerful brand of Odisha and Odisha's soft power, will be invaluable for its progress and prosperity. So this is brand Kalinga, which I hope that Odisha will take to its logical conclusion. As a student of history honors over the Utkal University, I had the privilege to learn about Kalinga from a pioneering historian, Dr. Nabin Kumar Sahu. Much was what was available to him about Kalinga and its maritime past was shrouded in myths, mysteries, and in memories. After diligent research, Dr. Sahu succeeded in providing a brief but credible history of ancient Odisha. Following his lead, a whole new generation of eminent historians, many of them are present here, and I wish to make special mention of Professor Patit Pavan Mishra, whom I consider to be the guru of Kalinga and Southeast Asian studies. I am pleased that a new generation of historians, they are taking up this great history with great seriousness. The mention of Kalinga in the Mahabharata establishes its long antiquity as a strong military power. It emerged as a maritime force around the 5th century BCE and continued to dominate the eastern seaboard of India until about the 15th century. Recent excavations at ancient port sites like Tamralipti, Palur, Kalinganagar, Kolkata Patna, and other places have confirmed that Kalinga had a trading network that stretched from the Roman Empire in the west to Southeast Asia and China in the east. Kalinga traders were amongst the earliest to explore Southeast Asia, which is why even today Indians in Southeast Asia are referred to as Kaling, Kelang, Kiling, or Kling in that region. Odisha's cultural memories are rich with references to an intrepid community of traders called Sadhavas. These were the voyagers who fearlessly crossed what in Odisha we call the 7 seas and the 13 rivers, Sata Samudra Tera Noi. They crossed it fearlessly and explored the shores of Subarna Bhumi, as Southeast Asia was called at that time. They traded with Java, Sumatra, Bali, Borneo, and many other destinations, bringing back a rich merchandise of gold, precious stones, textiles, and spices. These memories have been kept alive, as was mentioned earlier, in festivals like Kartik Purnima, Bali Jatra, and Khudurkuni Osa. The Sadhavas used their spacious ships to also transport scholars, missionaries, priests, artists, sculptors, and many others. But the evidence points to a two-way process of peaceful cultural exchange between both sides for nearly 2000 years. A mistaken impression was created by historians of the mid-1930s that Indian culture and social practices were gifted to the people of Southeast Asia through a process of colonization and Indianization. I want to assure our guests from Southeast Asia present here that such a point of view was both erroneous and insensitive. There is not a shred of evidence that India established colonies overseas or that Indian culture was forced on the local people. Indeed, I will venture to suggest that the process by which external influences were absorbed by the local societies of Southeast Asia, that can be a valuable lesson for India and the rest of the world. Imagine that Hindu and Buddhist culture, which traveled from here to Southeast Asia, were seamlessly integrated there with the social customs of other people. But I learned recently from an Indonesian scholar that the spread of Islam in the Malay-Indonesia region was a similar process of assimilation. According to him, the people of Java blended three religions, Islam, Hinduism, and Buddhism, into a harmonious fusion of beliefs and practices, which was referred to as Islam Kejawen. Another nugget of information is that a large number of villages, cities, and regions were named as Kalinga at various times in ancient Indonesia. There is a report of a Kalinga kingdom in central Java in the 6th century, which is referred to as Terajan Keling by the local people and Ho Ling by the Chinese. On both sides of the eastern Indian Ocean, powerful kingdoms were demonstrating their prowess by building thousands of temples, stupas, chaityas during the long period of our maritime contact. The art and architecture of Southeast Asia may look familiar to Indian eyes, but we need to remember that they were products of indigenous creativity and not replicas of Indian art. The island of Bali, which has been mentioned, holds a special appeal for the people of Odisha. Scholars have drawn attention to the striking similarity on both sides of food, language, social habits, and religious practices. Lord Jagannath receives special reverence in Bali, but you'll be interested to know he is worshipped as Lord Shiva, not as Lord Vishnu, as in Odisha and in India. The Balinese have given an honored place to Mahanadi and to Mahendra Tanaya as their sacred rivers. They also chant the prayer, Om Ksamasamam Jagannatha. Om Ksamasamam Jagannatha is a prayer of the Balinese, I think, which will bring joy to the heart of every Odia. Equally interesting is the celebration of Kartik Purnima and Bali Jatra in Odisha finds an echo in the Masakapam Kepesi festival of Bali. I would like a footnote to this history of Kalinga in Southeast Asia with something interesting I read in the newspaper just 2 days ago. Mr. Sanjeev Sanyal, a member of the Prime Minister's Economic Advisory Council, has initiated a project to build a ship inspired by a 5th century painting in the Ajanta cave. To me, it appears to be similar to the ships built by the Sadhavas in ancient Kalinga. Now, this ship which is to be rebuilt according to that painting, is going to be named as the INSV Kaundinya, and it will be brought to Odisha, and then it will sail to Indonesia. So watch out for that event when a ship called INS Kaundinya is going to sail from the shores of Odisha like in ancient times and go to the shores of Indonesia. But commenting on Kaundinya, why is the ship named Kaundinya? Mr. Sanyal mentions that Kaundinya was a famous king of Indian origin in Southeast Asia. But he also mentions that there is a community called Kaundinya Brahmins who are still residing in the southern part of Odisha and the northern part of Andhra Pradesh. So here is another mystery which I want the historians to resolve. Is the great king Kaundinya of Southeast Asia also from Kalinga? As a professional diplomat, I found Southeast Asia to be the most fascinating part of the world that I have visited. My memories go back to 1996, when I was privileged to be sent as a special envoy of India to meet the leadership of Myanmar, Vietnam, Laos, and Cambodia. In all these countries, I was received with great warmth and courtesy, reflecting the high regard these countries have for India. It was, however, in Cambodia that in addition to discussing bilateral relations, I was given an educational briefing. I made a courtesy call on King Norodom Sihanouk, the late king of Cambodia. And that courtesy call turned out to be a tutorial given to me by the king on the ancient ties between India and Southeast Asia. The king explained to me that the name of the mighty river Mekong of Southeast Asia is actually derived from Ma Ganga. And then he proceeded to describe the ethnic and cultural ties that connected his country and the region with India. So it is humbling for me when I learned very recently, again from my historian friends, that King Phan Chan of Funan, as Cambodia was then called, sent an ambassador and a special envoy to the Murunda king of Kalinga in the 3rd century CE. And why I was humbled was, here I was a special envoy in Cambodia, 1300 years after Cambodia had sent a special envoy to Kalinga. During the period of British rule in India, many other European powers also established their hegemony in Southeast Asia. The traditional links between our two regions got diminished and became progressively weaker. I have described earlier how Prime Minister Narendra Modi has declared an Act East policy in 2014 and has vigorously expanded India's presence in the region. The Indo-Pacific has high priority for India and India's foreign policy, along with the recognition of ASEAN and its centrality in the region. The Indo-Pacific, I want to state, has become the virtual hub of geopolitics and geoeconomics in the 21st century. Please remember that out of the 5 top economies of the world, the 5 largest economies of the world, 3 of them are located in our region of the Indo-Pacific. They are China at number 2 with a GDP of $19.5 trillion, Japan at number 4 with a GDP of $4.4 trillion, and India at number 5 with a GDP of $4.3 trillion. In the next 3 years, it is estimated that India, being the fastest growing economy in the world today, will overtake both Germany and Japan and become the third largest economy of the world. So if India is rising to the top, my question is, should Odisha be far behind? I am convinced that this is an issue of vital importance to Odisha and its future. After nearly 500 years of political and economic decline, after the defeat of Raja Mukundadev at the hands of the Bengal Sultan Suleiman, after 500 years of decline, Odisha is now enjoying a period of cultural and economic renaissance. Poverty levels have gone down substantially, and the state has been growing at an impressive 8 to 9% in recent years. Odisha's GSDP, that is the gross state domestic product, is estimated to be over $100 billion today. A network of infrastructure and manufacturing has spread all over Odisha. New centers of national importance and excellence like IIT, IIM, NICER, AIMS are attracting the brightest talent available in their local centers in Odisha. Odisha, I am convinced, is poised for vigorous growth in the years to come. So the question which is relevant for this conference is, can Odisha replicate the success of Kalinga? A careful look at the map will give you the answer. Odisha has a strategic location and a close proximity to the Indo-Pacific, which is currently the world's largest marketplace. It is, in my view, in the Indo-Pacific and Southeast Asia in particular, are the Subarna Bhumi of the time of the Sadhavas. Kalinga is a powerful brand which invokes enterprise, resourcefulness, perseverance, and success. Kalinga is Odisha's soft power, which needs to be converted into smart power so that the state can once again become a powerhouse of growth and prosperity in the past. And therefore, this subject merits serious discussion in this conference. Now, I want to address finding a captive audience of these very important people right here. I have a special request for Mr. Sanjeev Mishra, who represents the authority of the government of Odisha here. Mr. Mishra, this is the task before us, how to develop a brand Kalinga. Because Kalinga is our inspiration, and Kalinga is our way to progress. And I hope that you and your department will give enough resources to fund the research that is going on Kalinga and its contacts with Southeast Asia and the rest of the Indo-Pacific. How to have more exchanges of scholars, musicians, sculptors, painters between Odisha and Southeast Asia, and how we can revive that friendship that lasted for 1,000 years. And I also have another request, Mr. Sanjeev Mishra. Please have enough funds and fight for it, because I know culture gets the lowest priority in our budget. But I think you will fight strongly for your constituents. Much of the recent history of Odisha has been because of excavations. And we need to have further excavations in these ancient sites. and enough funds must be given for excavations for more history to come to light. So let me conclude, ladies and gentlemen, by extending my best wishes for a successful and productive dialogue between Odisha and Southeast Asia. Jaya Jagannatha, Jaya Kalinga.
Indeed, we are grateful to our esteemed chief guest, Dr. Lalit Mansingh ji, the pride of Odisha, and one of the illustrious sons of Mother Odisha, to whom we hold dear to our hearts. Thank you, sir. Now I take the privilege to request esteemed Professor Upendra Padhi to kindly present Memento as a token of love and appreciation to the gracious presence of the eminent dignitaries. Indeed, we are thankful to all the dignitaries and grateful to each of them for their presence, and this memento is being presented as a token of love and appreciation, a reverence to the dignitaries and the dais. Small as our gifts are, but our gesture is warm and honest. Indeed, we feel honored in presenting memento to the dignitaries. And now, Professor Upendra Padhi will also be presented by our esteemed Sanjeev Kumar Misra ji. We are thankful to you, sir. Now, I would like to request Sri Manoranjan Panda, Conference Convener and Assistant Professor, Institute of Media Studies, to present note of thanks.
Jai Jagannath, Namaskar, Johar. On behalf of Organizing Committee of 3rd International Conference on Kalinga in Southeast Asia, the Civilizational Connect, I, Manoranjan Panda, the Conference Convener and Assistant Professor of Media Studies, welcome you once again, and I offer my deep gratitude and vote of thanks to the chief guest of this session, the inaugural ceremony, Ambassador Lalit Mansingh Singh sir, former Secretary, Ambassador to USA, High Commissioner to UK, and founding Chairman of Kalinga International Foundation, sir, for your gracious presence and inaugurating this ceremony. I express my deep gratitude to the guest of honor of this ceremony, Vice Chancellor of Utkal University, just retired yesterday, Professor Sabita Acharya ma'am, to gracing this inaugural ceremony and presenting the thoughts of this Kalinga and linkages with the Southeast Asia. I also express my deep gratitude and thankfulness to the guest of honor and the man behind of this ceremony, Sri Sanjeev Kumar Misra sir, IAS, Honorable Principal Secretary to Odisha Language, Literature and Culture Department, Government of Odisha, to encouraging us to organize this event and gracing this ceremony, sir. Thank you once again, sir. I also express my deep gratitude to the mentor of this ceremony, Professor Pratita Bhavan Misra sir, former professor of Northern University of Malaysia and chairman of One Asia Foundation and former professor of history in Sambalpur University, for mentoring this ceremony and preparing the entire 2-day plan and scrutinizing the papers and abstracts. Thank you, sir, for your effort and energy you have put into this ceremony. Thank you, sir. I also express my deep gratitude to Professor Upendra Padhi sir, the main architect of this ceremony, this third international conference, and the director of Institute of Media Studies for planning and executing this third international conference, and hope this kick-off ceremony will encourage other scholars to deliberate their ceremony in the coming up sessions. Thank you, sir, for organizing this ceremony. And once again, I express deep gratitude to the culture department, the staffs from the OLSS department, IMS, and the scholars, academicians from different universities across the country and Southeast Asian countries, and the students, volunteers. Thank you so much. So we will engage with different sessions we have to follow up this ceremony. Thank you once again. Have a good day.
Panel discussion. Within 4-5 minutes, we will start the panel discussion. Ujjwala Kuti.
Once again, we are extremely thankful to the dignitaries of eminence on the dais and to all of you for your kind cooperation to make the inaugural session a grand success. And after a short break for only 5 minutes, we will be once again together for a roundtable discussion on decoding Indianization beyond the traditional gauge. And this session will be moderated by Dr. Ujjwala Khoth Palchule, and the dignitaries will be invited. And we are very much grateful to all of you for your kind support to make this inaugural session one of its kind. Thank you. So taking a short break for only 5 minutes, we will be getting together once again for the roundtable discussion, and Dr. Ujjwala Khoth Palchule will be moderating the session, and we look forward to having your presence once again.
Thank you. I would just say to the members, delegates, that we are actually live. All this program is broadcasted live in the Culture channel, YouTube, Facebook, so kindly cooperate, whatever you do in this hall. Thank you.
କହିବ ଜାଣିପାରିଲନି କି?
R. Shivasa, Shiva Peregasam. Please come on the dais, please. Professor Patit Pawan Mishra, sir. I welcome all the dignitaries on the dais. Please.
On the chair, from microphone जैसे
Yeah.
टीवी में पैनल होता है ना,
ठीक है, sir.
नो
I'll do it.
पोडियम,
Yes.
टीवी में.
Namaste. Good morning all. A warm welcome to everyone present here. It is my great honor to moderate this significant session titled Decoding Indianization Beyond Traditional Gaze. For those who may not know me, I am Dr. Ujjwala Khot Parsule, Founder Director of Savrachana Heritage Conservation and Research Initiative based out of Pune. I am a conservation architect, author, and an architectural historian engaged in exploring the sacred geographies, temple architecture, and living cultural threads that connect India with Southeast Asia through shared civilizational heritage. For more than 2 decades, I have been working on the architectural influences of Indian temple architecture on Khmer temple architecture of Cambodia and Southeast Asia. This session is just not an academic exchange, but it is designed to create a dialogue that would invite us to listen to and honor voices from within the region. At the outset, I would like to thank Utkal University and Professor Padis for giving us this opportunity to plan these plenary sessions for this conference as a knowledge partner, and also to design the themes to direct us towards the outcome of this conference. Often, discussions around India's influence in Southeast Asia are narrated from external or singular perspective. But today, we shift that lens. We gather here to hear directly from those who live and work in these vibrant cultures, voices that carry within them layered histories, indigenous adaptations, and lived wisdom. We seek to understand how Indic traditions in various countries were not just adopted, but meaningfully interpreted, deeply integrated within the local context, be it through rituals, languages, culture, art forms, and philosophical thought. The theme of this particular panel discussion is focusing on deconstructing diffusionist model, indigenous perspective on Indian influence and local adaptation, role of traditional knowledge systems, rituals and festivals, heritage conservation and education efforts, and India's ongoing academic and cultural collaborations with Southeast Asian countries. I am privileged to introduce our 2 distinguished speakers who represent this dynamic intersection of culture and scholarship. I welcome Dr. Abubakar Ebihara from Indonesia, an eminent scholar and commentator whose research spans political history, governance, regional cultural identity. His insights into how Indian ideas interacted with local Indonesian thought tradition will offer us a valuable lens into civilizational interplay. Joining him is Professor Dr. R. Sivaperegasam from Malaysia, an erudite scholar deeply engaged with Tamil and Buddhist traditions in Southeast Asia. His work explores how cultural continuity is preserved through the ritual, oral history, and community memory. The presiding over this session as a chairperson is renowned Professor Patit Pawan Mishra sir, chairman of One Asia Foundation. We have just listened to his glorious thoughts. A respected voice in Asian historical and civilizational studies, his presence today brings depth, clarity, and broader pan-Asian perspective to our discussion. As we begin, I invite you all to reflect on how these interwoven narratives help us reimagine cultural identity, not just as a policy, but as a shared memory and mutual respect. May this session inspire new connections rooted in our rich and complex pasts. With this context, let us now begin the vital conversation by inviting our esteemed speakers to share their thoughts. After each speaker's presentation, we'll have a question-answer session, and then I would like to invite respected chairperson to offer his concluding remarks. So with the permission of chairperson, I would like to invite Dr. Abubakar Ebihara, a distinguished scholar from Indonesia, whose work spans political history, cultural identity, and Southeast Asian governance. Dr. Hara, we are eager to hear your thoughts on this topic, decoding Indianization. So floor is all yours.
Okay, good afternoon, namaskar, distinguished guests, respected professor, colleagues, and fellow participants. First, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the OLLNC Department of Cal University and the Institute of Media Studies for the kind invitation to present my research today. So I'm honored to be part of this academic forum. So I would like especially to acknowledge Prof. Upenda Padi, the chairman of this conference, and Prof. Patit Pawan Mishra, my colleague when I was in Malaysia, for their support and for facilitating this intellectual space that encourage dialogue and in this interdisciplinary engagement. So actually, I think I will speak in the afternoon, but I think it is kind of rearranged, so I'm not really prepared to do it to this time, but it's okay. I have my. So I'll be presenting my paper entitled Kalinga and Southeast Asia, Civilizational Exchange and the Formation of the Pre-Modern Regional Order. So my research revisits a significant but often underexplored chapter in Asian history, namely the role of Indian Kingdom of Kalinga in shaping the early international society of Southeast Asia. So drawing on theoretical perspective from constructivist, civilizational international relation and historical sociology, so my study aims to demonstrate that the regional order in Southeast Asia was formed not solely through economic or military means, but through civilizational dialogue, including the exchange of religious ideas, political cosmology, language, and art. So by tracing these cultural and symbolic exchanges, I also hope to contribute to the broader project of decolonizing international relation theory and to provide an alternative lens through which we can understand the historical foundation of regionalism in Asia. So first of all, I would like to define that Kalinga as a civilizational actor. So Kalinga, located in the eastern Indian coast, was a major maritime hub from around the 3rd century BCE. It connected India with Southeast Asia via the Bay of Bengal and played a pivotal role in transmitting religions, governance models, and cultural practices, acting not only as a trading state but as a civilizational bridge. So it was a maritime kingdom with strategic ports linking India to Southeast Asia. So it is also active in early Indian Ocean trade network and cultural exchange routes. It spreads Buddhism, Hinduism, Sanskrit language, and political cosmologies through monks, merchants, and royal envoys. Also, Kalinga took part in the Indianization of Southeast Asia. Kalinga played a major role in the Indianization of Southeast Asia. Indianization refers to how Indian culture influenced Southeast Asia through trade, religion, language, and arts. But this influence was shaped by active local participation. Areas of influence cover political influence such as tributary states and alliances in Southeast Asia. So it also covers cultural transmission, language, scripts, Brahmi, Falapa, religions, Hinduism and Buddhism, temple architecture, styles spreading from Kalinga to Khmer, Cham, and Japanese temples. So it covers also arts and iconography, such as sculpture styles and motifs. So core region impacted by the Southeast Asia by India includes Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Thailand, and Malaysia. So according to an expert of international relations, Amitabh Acharya, the Indianization was constitutive and selective. So Southeast Asia elites adapted Indian ideas to local needs. For example, it adopted mandala system, Devaraja kingships, and they are locally interpreted. So Hindu-Buddhist ideas merged with indigenous animisms and cosmology. India culture didn't erase the local, it fused with it. What emerged were hybrid systems where Indian ideas were reshaped into new Southeast Asian forms. Rather than a narrative of dominance, we can see the Indianization as a civilizational diplomacy, a shared project shaped by both sides of the Bay of Bengal. So the examples of Indianization is the mandala system. One of the relevant examples of Indianization is the mandala concepts, originated from the Sanskrit words meaning circle or sphere. This concept first was formalized by Kautilya in his book Artha Sastra. The first time the concept was a kind of realist model of interstate strategy and diplomacy. But however, the concept was transformed after the post-Kalinga War. Asoka turned from conquest to Buddhist diplomacy. It maintained the central Mauryan prestige in an asymmetrical system, but it used cultural diplomacy as well. So Southeast Asia adopted mandala as a flexible system of influence. It focuses on religious, cultural, and symbolic diplomacy, not conquest. It is a contrast with the fixed sovereignty model of Western state. With regard to the Southeast Asia mandala system, the authority of kingdoms declined with distance from the center. So the further the region, the weaker the influence of the center. So this is the kingdom systems in the pre-colonial period. So in the Mandela system, the authority of the kingdom declines with the distance of the center. The further the region, the weaker the influence of the center. And in terms of sovereignty, sovereignty is a gradational, fuzzy, and floral. Smaller polities can be in multiple mandalas. Power from layers, not strict border. Power was relational, fluid, and often based on shared religious and symbolic norms rather than territorial control. The mandala system is a parallel with Javanese political cosmology. In Javanese view, power is niskala. It is a mystical, radiating, and centered. The kraton or the palace symbolizes cosmic order and is the source of authority. It is a similar centripetal structure to Indian mandala. So according to Benedict Anderson, power is not created or destroyed, it is accumulated or lost. So this is a parallel system with mandala in Japanese political cosmology. And so as I mentioned before, Indian models such as mandala were not imposed, they were selectively adopted and localized. And it reflects civilizational diplomacy, not cultural hegemony. So it is a hybrid structure like sacred kingships emerged through synthesis. And we can see this pre-colonial order of Southeast Asia in the Majapahit and Sriwijaya kingdom. So for example, in the Majapahit kingdom, it adapted Indian mandala concept to govern a vast and ethnically diverse archipelago. Majapahit centered in Java, its influence extended to Sumatra, Bali, Kalimantan, and the Philippines. It's governed through federal diplomacy, trade, and cultural exchange, not through direct military rule. So it maintains symbolic supremacy while allowing local autonomy. So this is the interpretation of mandala system during the Majapahit period. And in Sriwijaya time, Sriwijaya was a Buddhist maritime kingdom linking India and China. It exercised centrality through religious patronage, trade networks, and cultural prestige. And so in the pre-colonial order of Southeast Asia, the key characteristic of the mandala system, it has no fixed border, power radiates outwards, weaker with distance. The authority is symbolic, not absolute. The relation is asymmetrical, overlapping, and negotiated. So it is in sub-contrast with the Westphalian state system of fixed sovereignty and borders. And now I think I will move to the contemporary relevance, why the history still matters. So the mandala system offers insight into modern regionalism like ASEAN, which mirrors mandala principle. The historical experience of Kalinga and Southeast Asia still resonates today. ASEAN principle of non-interventions, consensus, and soft diplomacy reflects mandala values. India's East policy also revived these ancient ties, while Indo-Pacific strategies echo old maritime connection, showing that past civilizational ties still shape regional politics. And pre-colonial Southeast Asia saw the sea as a connective space, not a contested one. Today's Indo-Pacific tension, such as South China Sea, can benefit from this shared historical lens of connectivity. Rather than viewing the sea as a battleground, we can draw from history to frame it as a bridge of civilizational exchange. ASEAN reflects mandala principle, non-intervention, flexibility, and regional harmony over legalistic enforcement. Civilizational pluralism, mutual respect among diverse cultures shapes ASEAN cooperation. According to Acharya, ASEAN Way is not weak. It is a culturally grounded form of diplomacy shaped by centuries of interaction. So in conclusion, I would like to say Kalinga shaped a pluralistic and culturally integrated regional system in Southeast Asia. Historical civilizational exchange continues to inform identity, diplomacy, and power relations in the region today. In conclusion, the Kalinga-Southeast Asia relationship exemplifies a non-Western model of international relations. It invites us to rethink how region forms, how power exercise, and how civilizational legacies shapes today's diplomacy. By acknowledging these long-standing connections, we can move toward a more inclusive and historically grounded understanding of global politics. Further research should explore civilizational diplomacy as a key framework for understanding global orders. That's all. Thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you, sir, for enlightening us on the ancient Indian traditions getting translated in Indonesian context. I would like to invite our next speaker, Dr. R. Siva Peregasam. To start with, he draws his work from life traditions, scholarly research, offering important insight into continuity and adaptation. I would like to ask sir to focus on his work, A New Perspective on Shaivism, Literary Studies in Malaysia, because we all understand that there is a Tamil religious practices which are still there in Malaysia, and there must be some understanding about Indo-Malaysian cultural confluence, so I would like you to throw some light on that. See, you can use the mic here.
Very humbly, I would like to introduce myself first. My name is Siva, and I hail from Malaysia. To be specific, Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And I'm very thankful to the organizers of this seminar or conference, right, for inviting me to deliver a talk, or rather intellectually, on the political history of the country that I come from, Malaysia. Basically, I'm not actually a native of Malaysia. You see, what happens is, to give you a very brief account of my background, my ancestors are from Kerala, India. Anyone from Kerala here? None? Okay. Anyway, my late grandparents, they migrated to Malaysia, or what it was called those days, Malaya. I think you're familiar with that term, right? Malaya. Malaya only became Malaysia in 1957, right, upon achieving independence from the British, right? So my role here is to actually confine my talk to the ethnic Indians, who are or who were in Malaya historically, right? Their existence, their migration, and how they impacted on the socio-political and economic conditions in Malaya at that time, right? So, since it is a very wide scope, so I thought that it would be wise for me to only confine my talk, on the subject, of the Indians in Malaya, starting from the 1400s, right? 1400s, that is when the existence of the Indians from India came into play, right? So, I will end in the year 1957. 1957, because that was the year Malaya achieved independence from the British colonials. So, the focus of the talk that I'm going to deliver would be what was the kind of predicament of the Indian ethnic or the Indian community, right, prevailing during those times. So, but before that, may I respectfully wish you all a very warm welcome, That is very ethical to do that. And the organizers and the speakers, thank you so much for your presence, your support, your encouragement of allowing me to deliver a few facts on what I can deliver within the confinement of 15 minutes or 10 minutes. Is that right? 10 to 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, because I was supposed to talk, I think at 4:30, the schedule. But suddenly, I was called to the stage to deliver my rumblings, I think, So let me begin by saying that Malaya is historically a Hindu-Indian land before it became what we call the Malay archipelago, right? Because the Indians from India who migrated there, prior to that they were just there for economic reasons. They were not there yet to what I call establish themselves in the socio-political, realities of the country or the, of the environment that they were in. They were there basically just to transact economic activities. I think because they were all those days, having big ships, traveling all over across the oceans, and everywhere to transact the kind of businesses or the trade that they were doing, right? So, on account of that, they were known to be very well-known traders, all these Indians, who were originated from many parts of India, right? But essentially from South India, I was told. That is why we have a plethora of the Indian community in Malaya at that time. Not only confined to one segment of the Indians, Tamils, who are of course the majority in that land at that time, but also many others. We have Telugus, we have Malayalis, we have Bengalis, we have Sikhs, or Punjabis we call them, and many other, like Ceylonese, who appear to have come with extra academic credentials and therefore occupying the government positions, the administrative positions in the country at that time. Now, talking about the very early beginning of the Hindu civilization in the Malay archipelago, I would like to bring all of you back to the year 1400 or 1400, right? Because that was the time when we are introduced in history of a man by the name of Parameswara. Have you all heard of him? Never. Okay, let me give you an account of a background on him. Are you familiar with the Srivijaya Empire, the Majapahit Empire? Oh, you are. So wonderful. So Parameswara actually originates from a place called Palembang. And Palembang was under the Srivijaya dynasty, who was ruling Sumatra at that time in Indonesia. But because Parameswara, from the Srivijaya dynasty was having problems with the Majapahit dynasty, he had to run away. And he ran away to, firstly, to a place called Temasek. Temasik. Temasek. Rings a bell? It is now no more known as Temasek. Anyone knows what is the current name of Temasek? Anyone would like to try your luck? You'll be surprised. Temasek is actually the old name of Singapore. So he ran away to Singapore, and there he was not, he didn't feel safe, so he ran to another place called Malacca. Are you familiar with Malacca? Or what we pronounce it in English as Malacca. Okay? That was the year that established in 1403 the early beginnings of the Hindu-Indian civilization in the Malay archipelago. It was because of the contributions of this man called Parameswara, right, who established a kingdom in Malacca, which then became an empire, trading with so many other countries in the Malay archipelago. Name it. Indonesia, Siam, or what we call Thailand today, right? And parts of India, right? And many other countries, right? And we know that the establishment of the first socio-political system in Malacca was wholly based on the Hindu-Indian traditions. Okay, I would like to bring that point to you because it is not the Malays, because basically the Malays, they were migrants from mostly Indonesia at that point of time. They were also trading, and they happened to also become natives of the country, Malaya, because they were associated closely with what we call Orang Asli. Orang Asli means aborigines. These are the earliest people in Malaya those days, right? So what I'm trying to stress again, the point is that the very beginning of civilization ever known in Malaya at that point of time, socio-politically, was the Hindu-Indian civilization started by this man who later became the king called Parameswara. But history records that Parameswara converted to Islam in the year 1414. I can remember the year. That was the turning point, the changing point, where we see the Hindu, of course, the Buddhists as well, the Hindu-Buddhist civilization slowly diminishing, into the background and being replaced by a new tradition in the land called Islam, right? So this is something that you must be very clear of, and it all happened because Parameswara converted to Islam in the 1400s, 1403, and became a Muslim. And his Muslim name was Megat Iskandar Shah. So the very word Shah, I think you know the connections. Shah are all connected to Islamic traditions. So what I'm saying is, even though that was the scenario, but Parameswara still retained the socio-political system in his kingship. So we find the hierarchy of the palace, right? What we call the istana, right? The palace, right? Was solely based on the administrative system taken from the Hindu-Indian civilization. He calls himself Raja. We all know Raja, right? Raja is the king, followed by other officials called Shabandar, Laksamana. I think you're familiar with all these terms, right? So I will not go very deeply into that, because my idea here on this point is just to introduce to you that during the early beginnings of the Indian Hindu civilization in Malay archipelago was something that originated from the Hindu traditions. I just want to let you know that. Okay? So of course Parameswara established diplomatic relations with other countries nearby, and slowly the sphere of influence, in Malacca, what I call, was multiplied in other neighboring states in the Malay archipelago. Or may I also say and introduce the Malay Peninsula, right? So when I say that it was very strong, I mean the influence, the traditions of the Hindu-Indian civilization, I will just give you one example. The language thing. Almost 2/3 of the Malay language, that we know today, right, is actually borrowed from the Indian Hindu language of Sanskrit. So you will find a lot of Sanskrit words being borrowed and assimilated into the Malay language. So that is another point that I want to make it clear. When we are talking about the magnificence of the Hindu-Indian civilization, we must be aware of all these things. Okay? All these facts, what I mean. So moving on to what was important, right? Because my time is short, but I'm trying to impress upon you that the early beginnings of the Hindu-Indian kingdom in the Malay archipelago, that is my focus here. But of course, I want to move on very quickly. Upon the arrival of before that, I must also mention on the literature aspects of it, the religious aspects of it. Even though Islam was professed, but it was just skin deep. That's about it. But still, they were still very strongly attached to the Hindu Indian civilization of looking at it. So literature-wise, for example, the Ramayana and the Mahabharata was already introduced into the Malay culture, Malay Islamic culture at that time. Yeah? So these texts were used as texts that guided the socio-political livelihood, or rather the day-to-day aspects of living of the people at that time, right? Not only that Ramayana and Mahabharata, I also would like to bring to your attention the religious Vedas, as we know, the Rig Veda, Sama Veda, Yajur Veda and Atharva Veda were also strongly introduced at that time and became the norm of guidance for the people of that time. Even though Islam was professed, but it was not really very deeply professed. Yeah, the influence of the Hindu-Indian civilization, yeah, was very strong, religion-wise. Right? We also have other texts like the Puranas, yeah, the Smritis, the Shrutis, name it, Upanishads, right? What else? What else? So many other Indian prominent texts were all slowly, translated, yeah, so that it can also be followed by the local people there at that time, yeah, the dominant Malays, yeah, who was also very interested in arts and literature. So much so, one example is the Wayang Kulit. Are you familiar, Wayang Kulit? In English, it is called shadow play. Shadow play is very prominent here, right? Especially in Odisha. I think, if I'm not wrong, Odisha is the origin for these shadow plays. But they were very much practiced, yeah, in the Malay land at that time. Yeah, because they were translating the Ramayana epic stories, yeah, the Mahabharata stories, yeah. They already know the Pandavas, the Kauravas, the Kurukshetra war, whatever there is. They are already familiar with all that. But I want to say that the facts were being localized. So they put new names there, right? I will not go very deeply into that, but I just want the audience to know of all this at a surface level, because of time constraint, right? So what else can I say about these things? I like to emphasize on the early beginnings, because that was the foundation of the early Hindu-Indian civilization in the Malay land, Malay archipelago we call it. Yeah? Eventually we know, because of the Western dominance in the land, yeah, starting with the Portuguese in 1511, when they invaded Malacca, right? So their influence came into play, and subsequently we have the Dutch. The Dutch came in 1641 to replace the Portuguese, right? And as far as historical records are concerned, the influence of the Portuguese and the Dutch were not very prominent, yeah, as far as their impact on the Indian civilization and stuff is not very prominent. But upon the arrival of the British, yeah, that was the turning point, because the British were not only interested in the trading aspects or the business aspects, but they were also interested in spreading their religion of Christianity, right? Establishing churches, yeah, trying to infiltrate their Christian indoctrinations into the local people, right? So the British, comparatively, when we talk about Western influence in the country, sorry, I didn't mention which year is that. British 1786, to be exact. That was the time they first landed, yeah, in Malaya. And they were subsequently very, very hard-pressed in wanting to impose their beliefs, their faith, yeah, their systems, yeah, onto the local people. So that was a very strong impact, even though there were oppositions towards their rule, I mean the British rule in Malaya, right, at that time, but the local people were not as strong or as firm as the British, because the British were advantageous. They had many advantages in many aspects, including what I call weaponry, in armed tactics, and so forth. So we find that the British very strongly influenced Malaya from the 1700s until Malaya achieved independence from the British in 1957. So what I want to say is the British imposed their social and political and economic systems onto the people of Malaya at that time, Indians included, right? Indians were the most happy, yeah, community to work closely with the British at that time. Why do you think this is so? Because at that same time, India was being ruled by the British. So you know the connection. So you know the vibrations. It was easy to rule the Indian community. I know this because my grandparents themselves, yeah, in fact, they migrated to Malaya in the late 1700s. So you can understand, I'm the third, fourth generation in that country, right? So I know very well how they were made to, if I may use the word assimilation, the process of assimilating one particular race, yeah, into following or observing another race's norms, cultures, traditions. So this is exactly what has happened. All the churches were established to convert the Indians, who also, once again, very happy to convert to Christianity, yeah, because of certain privileges that they could get upon conversion, right? And that was the beginning of us there having Indian Christians, right? So this is something that I want to say, and owing to the process of what we call proselytization, right, which was strongly implemented in that land at that time, because the British, yeah, they had a lot of funds to give away this and that, privileges, and also they managed to gather a lot of Indians to become, or rather to be converted to Christianity, right? So, cutting the story short, the Indians at that time were a working class, just a working class, mere working class at the lower brackets. They were not, some of them were in the middle brackets, but none at the upper brackets. Yeah? Lower brackets meaning they were just laborers brought in by the British in big numbers after 1800. I want to put that to you. Why? Because Malaya at that time, under the British, they were really trying to spice up the rubber industry, which was very prominent at that time. Of course, along with the tin industry. But the tin industry, I will leave it because that concerns the Chinese. Yeah? But when we talk about rubber, it is very closely connected with the Indians. So I just want to tell you that the sacrifices, yeah, the blood, the sweat, the tears of the Indian community at that time, who came in, were brought in, some forcefully, right? Some in deceit, right? Through a system called the Kangani system. Kangani system. I think you may want to research further on that Kangani system, which is a forced kind of labor, you know, at that point of time, that prevailed under the British. The British didn't care. All they were concerned about is their economic interests. So whatever that is they could gain from the Malay land, or Malaya at that time, it was all channeled to England. So England became more and more prosperous in the process, right? But over here, when I talk about the tin industry, you must look at some of the history that has been written, even by the whites themselves. Yeah, the terrible, the sadistic, the pathetic conditions of the Indian community at that time. Yeah, trying to clear all the rubber jungles, you know, to plant rubber trees, having to deal with wild animals, having to deal with all sorts of diseases like malaria, right? And some of them were very poor, yeah, famine and all that. And this is the kind of sufferings that I'm putting to you in a very quick but in a precise manner, so that I don't want to leave anything left out, right? So this was the Indian community that we had at that time, moving towards the 1957 independence of Malaya. The British had no choice, because when they suggested that the Indians go back to India during that time, the Indians were not happy. They wanted to retain themselves in Malaya. They wanted to stay put in Malaya. Yeah? And therefore, the British had no choice. So the British told the Malays that if you want independence, our condition is that you must accept the Indians and the Chinese as the locals in the country, and therefore giving them citizenship and what have we. So that was the starting of the, what we call, maybe this is a political term that I want to introduce, jus soli. Maybe some of you might have heard of it, jus soli, right? It is a citizenship kind of thing, but it was not really very favorable to the Indians. According to my readings, my research, I find that the Indians lost out a lot. Yeah, even though they were given British Malaya citizenships, but they lost out a lot. Yeah, how they lost out a lot, I wish to tell you this, but I can't. In the constraint of time, I can't. And I want to just end my talk here very quickly by saying that had it not been for the British, the Indians, right, who had to struggle, yeah, for their livelihood under the British Malaya, right, Malaya could not have survived, because rubber, along with tin, was the main important export commodity at that time. So they were bringing a lot of money economically. So Indians, their sacrification, their what have we, were not really honored by the British. All that the British wanted to do was to grant the independence to Malaya and just boot out of Malaya back to their countries. So leaving the hardship, the problems, the trauma, I would say, yeah, among the Indians to persist on, even during the post-independence era, which I mean after the 1957. All these are very interesting readings, but I cannot just tell you in a very short frame of time. I think my time is up, right? You didn't remind me.
That's
This is my problem. I get carried away. I'm sorry if I...
No issues, sir.
Yeah. So I think I'll end here. With all due respect, sorry if I said things which are hurting or which are sensitive, but facts are facts. Yeah, I will not mince my words if they are facts, but they are substantiated by historical records, right? So with that, I thank very much my very good friend who I consider my brother, yeah, Prof. Patit Paban Mishra. We were colleagues together, yeah, when he was a resident professor in University Utara, Malaysia, in Kedah. Yeah, Kedah, I must quickly mention here, is another very important state, a Malay state that has very strong Hindu influence, Hindu-Indian influence. I would perhaps like to suggest that you look up on these readings on the Bujang Valley. The Bujang Valley, which is the oldest Hindu-Indian civilization in the country also, right? And the expert is sitting here. He has a book. Prof. Patit Paban Mishra has a book written on the Lembah Bujang, or what we call in English, the Bujang Valley, right? It is in Kedah, right? It's a testament to the early beginnings of the existence of the Indian Hindu civilization in Malaya. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir, for taking us through the history of Malaya so systematically and chronologically. I have a few questions for both our speakers. Indianization is a very well discussed term. Since 1965, when this term was first coined by Professor Coates, he explains Indianization as adaptation of Hindu, Buddhist cultures, Sanskritization or Sanskrit language, and political system, adaptation of political system. Now there are a lot of debates which happened over time about this terminology called Indianization. Scholars started calling this phenomena as shared heritage for a long time now. But looking at the local cultures, I have this question for Professor Hara as well as Professor Shiva. From local perspective, how do you interpret this influence? So if we want to recoin this term, Indianization, was it integration, transformation, or selective appropriation? So what is your opinion about it? So, Professor Hara? Both of you. Both of you, sir. This question is for both, considering or with respect to your own countries, your own experiences. How do you look at this term called Indianization in your context? Is it integration, transformation, or selective appropriation of two cultures?
Mix of all. In my opinion, it's a mix of all. What we use the word amalgamation, right? We try to synthesize all the three into one unity, right? So there is a composure that I come from, the premise that I'm coming from. Just to cut it short, right? Thank you.
Define Indianization in your own country? Is it integration, transformation, selective appropriation? How is it amalgamated? How these two cultures are amalgamated? And how will you describe it? Yeah, the Indianization concept. Considering its discussion happening over time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I think with regard to the Indonesia, we don't have many population of Hindu people. They are located mainly in Bali Islands. In Bali, the majority of the population are Hindu people, Hinduisms, and I think they are quite integrated as well. There is Muslim minority over there, stay in Bali. Particularly, they work because Bali is a tourist area, a very famous area. It is easy to find job over there because of the tourism industry. but they are well integrated. I think they have no problem in in the daily life, in social lives. The Muslim and the Hindu over there, they live together. They work for I think mainly the boss or the manager of companies of a hotel. They are all from Hindu, but the worker mainly from Java Island, so they also work over there. So yeah, there is a kind of integration. That's no problem. But in other area, in the city, in the government, I think the Hindu people is quite representative in the government, also in the parliamentary house as well. So it's quite well integrated. But my topic actually more talk about the past, the relationship, the historical relationship between India civilization, particularly Kalinga civilization, and how it shapes the Southeast Asian order, how they influence, how the Kalinga civilization influenced the Southeast Asia regional order in the past, which has, I'll mention, which has still influence, has a reflection in the current ASEAN organization. So that's what I talk in my paper actually. Okay.
Yeah, just in continuation with this, sir, I would like to ask you, what is the legacy of Indianized kingdoms like Srivijaya or Majapahita? How are they being understood in Indonesia's current narrative or current education system? How is it? Yeah, Majapahita and Srivijaya dynasty from Indonesia. So how this narrative is still there as part of your education system? How is it perceived today?
Yeah. With regard to the Sriwijaya and Majapahit kingdoms, the Indonesian leader, particularly Sukarno, he was very proud of these kingdoms in the past. So it is a kind of at the root of Indonesian identity is the Sriwijaya, Majapahit, and then other Hindu kingdoms or Buddhist kingdom in the past. So we build our identity, our historical roots based on these Hindus and Buddhist kingdom in the past. So although later on we developed the Islamic influence on Indonesia, but still we consider that our root, our identity, we are very proud of how Majapahit become a very big kingdoms covering almost all the Southeast Asia. Similarly, we are proud of how Sriwijaya has a very good relationship with India, with China as well, and how the monks, the scholars was working in the past. So the scholars from Sriwijaya sent to India as well, sent to China as well. So we cannot forget about these historical roots. Although now I think Indonesia changed because of the majority of the people are Muslim, but still these historical roots become something that we are proud of until now.
Coming back to the theme of our session now, if we want to look at decoding Indianization with respect to all the theories or all the literature which has been published, say during colonial era, so how would you look at it? How would you, I mean, considering every country has its own history, their own perspective about looking at architecture, culture, and there is a set of literature already available through which the scholars today look at this, the living heritage with that lens. So in India, we have, new education policy wherein a lot of indigenous thoughts are being embedded in the education system so that the lens of colonial, understanding could be changed or could be yes, change to the Indianized system. So, are there any efforts in your countries which are, helping people understand history through the indigenous perspective rather than from the colonial lens? Sir, Professor Hara, Professor. How would you propose decolonization of history, or how would, like you said, you mentioned about there is a forceful attempt of changing, narratives about history. So, how, what are the attempts, what are the efforts which are taken in your country, Malaysia, with respect to, changing this perspective or having different theories, different narratives to this?
Thanks for the question. Well, to respond to that, what she was asking, right? How are the Indians adjusting to all this in Malaysia? Yeah? Is that right? All these problems and challenges that they have right in front of their nose. But how are they handling it? Yeah? I would say, comparatively with the Chinese, which is the other migrant group, the Indians are more subtle, more composed, very humble, and very accepting. You see, that is the kind of Indians that we had during that times. I'm not saying that, but I have to, that mentality, that slave mentality, if I may, use that term here. There was very apparent among many of them, a great majority of them at that point of time. They just wouldn't want to cross fires with anyone. They just would like to lead a simple life, a relaxed life, without intervening so much into other people's affairs. And these are the kind of that Indian psychology that I'm talking about. But of course, I am not wrong to say that, if I may add further, expand further on what I'm saying, even until today, in current times, in my country, in Malaysia, this is the general outlook of the Indians there. They are still submissive, pessimist, They don't want to rock the boat. They are that kind of people, where they just allow things to be. I think, they attach so much to the concepts, the Hindu concepts of dharma, karma, and all that. They really hold on to those things very strongly. They are not really the survivalist kind of people, if you compare them with the Chinese. That is why in Malaysia today, the Chinese are way progressed as compared with the Indians. But the Indians only constitute what? Like only 2.2% of the total population of Malaysia today. We have a population of 34.1 million in Malaysia. Only 2.2% of them are Indians. And that also, we see a decreasing tendency of the Indians there. Because many of them seem to have migrated. Because in the year 2000, the percentage of Indians there was about 8.4%. Now it is only 6.6%. So a lot of analysis has been done. Why? Now the Indians are taking steps to migrate to other countries to look for better, greener pastures. You can't blame them. Because I tell you, if I'm going to talk about the history of the Indians, the well-being of the Indians, from 1957 until the present, I cannot discredit the fact that discrimination is there, favoritism is there, and all these things. Anyway.
We can have one or two questions from the audience. If volunteers can give them a mic. Yes, sir.
Hello.
This is not a question because I have worked on Indianization very extensively. I thought that it is important when you are discussing decoding in Indianization. I want to bring into proper perspective. I think, madam, the Indianization term was not coined by Siddhas. Siddhas only defined it. Indianization term has been there from the late 19th century and basically from 1920s to 1940s. And you see, why concept of Indianization grew? Because Indianization concept grew to counteract the colonial historiography in India. So because they said, the Britishers said that we have come to India to civilize you, to teach you the merits of democracy with the modern science. But then the Indians said that before, where you were in the Iron Age, we went and civilized Southeast Asia. So therefore the Indianization concept has to be understood from the Indian freedom movement and nationalist historiographical point of view. But then there is a tremendous, and if you, in 1920s, I think 1926, the Greater India Society was formed in Calcutta, and the Journal of Greater India Society came in 1934, and the foreword was written by none other than Rabindranath Tagore. Now, the strength of Indianization is that it tries to understand the comprehensive Indian influence in Southeast Asia. But then the limitation of Indianization theory was that it treated the Southeast Asian as a passive recipient of ideas and artifacts, the way the Britishers thought that Indians are the recipient of British ideas and artifacts. So therefore, that was the limitations of Indianization theory. Therefore, in 1950s, if you come, there was a Dutch historian called Von Leeuw, and Von Leeuw said that this whole gamut of Indianization theory is overestimated. On the other hand, he said that the Indianization, India's impact on Southeast Asia was a, quote and unquote, a thin flecking glaze. And therefore, you know, if you find it, the predominant literature that you find on Indianization is from 1920s to 1940s. But then in the 1960s, things went on changing because everybody realized that there is a resistance from Southeast Asia as far as the dominant paradigm of Indianization. Therefore, when Debahuti wrote a book, India and Malaya, in 1966, if I'm not incorrect, she not only said what India has influenced Malaya, but what India has received from Malaya. Therefore, this shadow puppetry, and there are 2-3 things which are coming. So, 1990s, when we are now, when you're in 21st century, we don't talk of Indianization in that sense. It's a shared heritage. Now, India and Southeast Asia, we believe that we have a shared heritage. And taking this shared heritage together, how we can use culture as a mode of soft diplomacy on the one hand, and also take these inputs of culture as bringing world peace on the other hand, and also take culture as a means of sustainable development. Now we have to understand not only the historiography of Indianization, but also the contemporary relevance, irrelevance, or what we have learned from that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
I am Umakant. I teach history at Ravenshaw University. This is also an observation, sir. Given the fact that historiography is largely a product of political developments, and as sir said, you know, if you look at the introductions of colonies of the Far East, Indian colonies of the Far East, R.C. Majumdar very, in the first sentence, talks about colonizations through peaceful means of a barbaric, uncivilized people. This is the term that R.C. Majumdar wrote. And it is at this, you know, this is the backdrop in which in Odisha also, we start talking of maritime voyages to Bali Jatra. You know, nowhere from 1870 or 769, I am looking at the first newspaper of Odisha, Utkal Deepika, it talks about, now Bali Jatra is being celebrated as intangible heritage, national festival. Nowhere from 1969 till I have covered 1907, nowhere Bali Jatra is regarded as being associated with voyages to Bali. It is more about a festival being held on the sandy bank of river Mahanadi. Therefore, at certain point, in 1940, in the backdrop of Greater Indian Society, for the first time, Ghanshyam Das, who is also an influential academician and now is the grandfather of Vaijayant Pandya, an important BJP Neta today, for the first time in the proceeding of Indian History Congress, for the first time Ghanshyam Das alluded to the association of Bali Jatra at Cuttack to maritime voyages to Bali. Therefore, this is the backdrop. The backdrop is Greater Indian Society. Therefore, we have been harping on this Greater Indian Society narrative that was brought to various localities of India, including, because South India we have greater presence of Tamil merchants in China, up to China, because of the organized guild that we had in the form of Monograph and Inaugural. Therefore, Nilakanta Sastri could push through. Because of Rajendra Chola, because of Rajarajas, and the kind of inscriptional presence of Tamil from, let's say, Tamil Nadu to China, that, the southern story could come out very clearly. Yeah. But that's not the case of Odisha. We don't have inscriptions because by that time there is no Odia language. Tamil was a classical language, therefore we didn't have that. But that doesn't mean that Odia didn't have. Now, suppose I have time, we have sufficient evidence to suggest that in the textile boom from 9th to 13th century, the presence of Kalingans are there, along with Ayavole, Karnataka, Lata, China, Chola. China means China. Therefore, we have to shift the gauge, right? Rather than picking up or sticking to the narratives of, for example, Greater India Society, there is high time that we do solid researches, and the gaze has to be shifted from Odisha and the folklore and other narratives that we have to Southeast Asian sources. For example, there are tax-paying foreigners in eastern Javan waters from 9th century, 13th century. There are 9 inscriptions which talk about the presence of foreign merchants in the shores of eastern Java. And they refer to various South Asian groups. That we need to, for example, 8 armed Vishnu images at Siem Reap. How did it come about? There are mandala in Vietnam, mandala kind of architecture even in Vietnam. Forget about Chandi Seu or Chandi Mendut or Borobudur. But we need to also recognize the functional autonomy, and as people say, we need to recognize the functional autonomy of the product of Southeast Asia. Borobudur is a distinctly Indonesian product. Even though there are shared heritage or mandala concept might have come from some sources, be it Nalanda, be it Odisha. Therefore, we need to focus on Southeast Asian sources. We need to focus on excavations of various materials in Odisha so that the narrations that we have from 1940 or 1926 to present time also gets a rejig. That's the point.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. May I now request Chairperson Professor Patit Pawan Mishra ji to conclude this session, conclude remarks. So, yeah,
I am Dr. Padiyari. I have just 2 questions. My question is very short and pinpointed. The first question is the Malaysian representative. Malaysia got independence 10 years after Odisha got independence. We are talking of the trade and commerce, and Malaysia depended on basically rubber and some petroleum and other products which existed. How come Malaysia became such a rich country, built its Petronas Tower, etc., within a short span. And what is the main source of a Malaysia economy? Number one. Number two, this question is all the honorable guests on the dais, panelists, that it is not the Bay of Bengal which was existing during the time the Kalinga had trade with other neighboring countries, Southeast Asian countries. That time, Bay of Bengal was named as Kalinga Sagar. One Buddhist book written in Sanskrit, Arya Manjusri Mula Kalpa, shows that was known as Kalinga Sagar, and later on, probably on 14th century, somebody has written that it was named as the Bay of Bengal. If you have some idea, you can throw some light on it. Regarding the origin of Odia language, some of my friend was referring here, it is as old as Sanskrit, and many research scholars say that it is older than Sanskrit. It was from Prakrut, and Sanskrit originated from Prakrut, and so also Odia, it was parallelly developed. So this needs detailed discussion, we may not go to that, but these two questions I want pinpointed answer from you.
Sir? Shiva sir, would you like to answer him? Professor Shiva, about his... Okay, fine, yeah. So, can we have chairperson, Professor Patit Pawan Mishra sir, to have concluding remarks on the sessions?
Ladies and gentlemen, very lively discussion, and with this we are coming to an end morning session. And whatever has been discussed today by my good friends Dr. Hara and Dr. Siva, we must ponder over it and work more on it. One day seminar is not enough for that, or half an hour discussion is not enough for that. And as far as the question of my friend is asked, that origin of Odia may be as old as Sanskrit, I think for that the linguists, they will be better to answer than myself, or who doesn't have much knowledge about linguistics. Odia is an old language, nobody doubts about it. It got a status of classical language. But due to something, Bay of Bengal has become common. Earlier, I saw in Malaysian museums, sorry, it is Bay of Kalinga. Then he was also referring Kalinga Sagar. So it's, I mean, you can say that as Indians are passive in Malaysia, so should we say that people of Odisha are also passive? No, not at all. For last 30, 40 years, so many researches have been done that it will give proper due weightage to Odisha's connect or contact or rapprochement with Southeast Asian culture. On the other hand, I broadly agree with view of Professor Vasa, my good friend, and Dr. Umakant Mishra, that we shouldn't behave like the colonial historians. And about this I am writing for last 30, 40 years. Once I read an article of Dr. Vasa also, we shouldn't do reverse colonialism. What did the colonial people were doing, we are doing it to Southeast Asians. Everything went from India. It was a cultural, imposition. It's not like that. Or what Dr. Mishra was telling, Umakant Mishra was telling, referring to Balijatra, such a hype is there. As Odias, we can take pride. But as a historian, as a social scientist, what's the rationale behind it? Just for some name, similarity, we shouldn't be jubilant. We shouldn't be very happy that it comes to sometimes ludicrous, laughing things. There is a place in Odisha, you know, Russia-Ukraine war.
somebody was telling, no, people of Odisha went there and did found Odisha. It's a laughable thing. In 1807, there was a battle, Napoleon fought with Austrian, Battle of Jena. Oh, Jenas from Odisha went. Well, such ludicrous things we shouldn't accept. For Chauvinism, for jingoism, it's all right. But for a proper historian, as my friends pointed out, 22 friends, we should be rational, we should go deep into it, we should do more research, and we shouldn't take a big brotherly attitude towards the people of Indonesia or Vietnam or Malaysia. Because material civilization also has gone in India as in Thailand or Vietnam, or the excavation that went on in the Bans of Thailand or Vietnam, it's going. So this seminar today, or whatever the elevation will be there tomorrow, will bring some light which will put in proper perspective the contribution of the Odisha to Southeast Asia. Neither it should be minimized, as it has been done earlier by other historians of India, neighboring states or something, or we shouldn't be too much possessive of a hype that everything went from this place or that place. And once again, I thank you all for your patience hearing, and I don't want to stand between lunch and you. After lunch, again we have discussion. Tomorrow again we have discussion, and our good friend Professor Padhi also is moving here and there, and how we'll conduct the 2 sessions, and it will be as educative as today's morning session. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, sir. Now we have online address by Dr. Indramani Pandey, Secretary General, BIMSTEC, Dhaka. Okay, fine. Yeah. So, yeah. So, I received this. Okay. It's okay, sir. I'll continue with this. Yeah. So thank you all once again for this session. I thank all the dignitaries on the dais for participating in this plenary session. And I now formally announce the closure of this session. Thank you very much.